dias. How's everybody doing? That sounds terrible. You guys sound really, really bad. That was really muffled. Yes, but that's okay. The masks are a good thing. It's good to see everybody. I'm glad you're here. Specifically proud of the juniors and seniors that are here right now because prom was last night. And so the fact that you're in church this morning just speaks volumes to your faith and your walk with the Lord. So well done. Thank you for being here. I want to open up today just by starting with a story. Like Joey said, I work with a ministry that is in Mexico. We are a coffee shop, and we are a rock climbing ministry. You will see how the two of those work together here in a second, but I just want to get it going with just a quick story. Calvin, you can go ahead and put that first picture up on the screen. Sick. All right, this is me and my buddy Devin. We went rock climbing together, and let me just give you a little bit of background about Devin real quick. Devin's a character. Honestly, that's all I could say about him, and I think that describes him perfectly. He's a character. He's a really funny, good guy, sometimes makes decisions that I don't think any other rational human being would make, but you know what? Love him all the same. Devin was like, hey, Shaefer, I want to go rock climbing with you. I want to do a big multi-pitch climb that goes up really, really high. And I was like, let's do it, man. Let's go. And other people were like, Shaefer, you're going to go rock climbing with this guy. All right, well, just be careful. And I was like, we got it. Devin and I, we're going to make it. It's going to happen. So Devin and I, we decided to go climbing. I'd work the morning shift in the coffee shop, and the two of us go off to climb. We pack up our stuff, super heavy packs, and we start up this trail. Now, the climb we decided to do is about a 30-minute hike, and it's a 30-minute hike that's, like, pretty intense. Like, sometimes you're kind of on all fours, like, crawling to get up. There's some fixed ropes you have to hold on to get to this climb, to even start climbing. And so we're, like, hiking along, and we're, like, it's, like, really tough, but the whole time we're joking, we're having a good time. We get to the base of the climb. Devin starts climbing first, so we hook into our rock climbing gear. He's climbing. I'm belaying, which is like holding onto the rope, and like if he falls, I'll catch him. And he's climbing up, and I just remember this, because typically you only communicate when climbing if there's a problem. Devin's like, 80 feet above me at this point, and he just yells down, Shaefer! And I'm like, well, what's up, dude? And he goes, I love you, man. And I'm like, thanks, dude. Cool. Like, weird time to have this conversation, but I was like, love you too, Devin. All right, keep climbing. That's just the kind of guy Devin is. The halfway through a rock climb where he's hanging off the edge of a cliff, he's just like, oh, man, I didn't tell Shaefer I love this guy, man. I love you, bro. And I was like, cool, man. All right. So the two of us keep climbing. I climb up to him, keep going up. End of the day, we get to the top. This is the photo we took together at the top of the climb. We actually prayed while we were up there. We kind of had a bro moment. We were just taking our sweet time. And then we start the rappel to the ground, right? So we start rappelling down, we get to the bottom, and it's like, all right, cool. And at this point, it's almost nighttime. Like, night is coming. So we both put our headlamps on, we pack up all of our gear, and we start hiking out. And at this point, I'm pretty tired. It's kind of been a long day. So hiking out, and I'm just following Devin. Like, I'm just kind of like, shut my brain off, following Devin. We're taking this trail down. And then I remember, like, maybe like 5-10 minutes into hiking, I'm like, this seems really hard. Like, this seems significantly harder than, like, the trail coming up, and it's supposed to be the opposite. It's supposed to be a little easier. So I asked Devin, I'm like, Devin, I tell him, I'm like, I don't think this is the trail that we came up on. And he's like, oh, yeah, dude, it's not, but we'll be all right. And I'm like, sick. All right, cool. So then we get to this, like, rock slide thing, and he's like, oh, dude, we can just get this all the way down the mountain. We'll just go down this all the way. And we literally had to go down one at a time, because I kid you not, we were literally surfing down these rock slides. And, like, to the point where, like, to bail out of the rock slide, you had to, like, jump out. And eventually we get to the bottom of the rock slide, and we are nowhere near the bottom of the mountain. And so then Devin and I, night hits, it's dark, headlamps on, packs, like, full of rock climbing gear, are just in the middle of, like, the bush, like, getting through bushes and thorns and spider webs, and just, like, constantly putting our feet on things we think are solid, and then our foot just, like, breaks through, like, bushes and stuff. And it's like, okay, this situation sucks. Like, this is awful. Night has hit, and it's just, like, this is going to suck. And, like, I remember just saying, like, or thinking, this is going to be, like, a long night. And all I wanted to do was get back to the town we live in, Hidalgo, and just take a shower and just be done with it. But I say this story, and I'm going to come back to this story later, and I'm going to revisit, show how it ends. But I say this story to illustrate sometimes life is really hard, and sometimes life is wild. The nice thing about a trail when you're hiking is somebody has walked it before, and you know where to go, right? I think maybe before 2020, a lot of us were kind of walking on trails. things we'd done before or other people had done before us. But now we're kind of living in a time where we're definitely off the beaten path and we're off the trail. And so we have to be flexible. And I use that word specifically because when I first got to Mexico, I was told rule number one in missions, especially with the ministry I'm a part of, which is called El Buo, rule number one is be flexible. And I would carry that over to the Christian walk in general. If you're in here today, you're a follower of Jesus, I would say, like, after rule number 1 and 2, loving God, loving people, maybe rule 3 or 4 is be flexible. You just got to roll with the punches, especially with the ministry I was a part of. I'm going to go through some stories and just aspects of the ministry that I work with, and you're going to see that we kind of have our hand in everything and have a lot going on. The first thing that I want to talk about and share with you guys is our school project, and I got some stories from that. So Calvin, you can go and do that next photo. This is a picture of a bunch of rock climbers who are about to work on building a school in Mexico. The nice thing about getting rock climbers to work on schools is they have like no problem like hooking up ropes to things and just like jumping off the side of a building and like painting stuff or working on things that they're like, yeah, it'll be fine. It's totally safe. And so climbers are also just really hard workers. So one of the things we do with our ministry is, since we all raise support to be there, like Joey mentioned a second ago, the money that we get from the coffee shop goes towards helping a local church support this school right here. This school is in a little town called Mission, and Mission started as a squatter community and is just a very poor community in general. And they don't have, as of a year ago, I guess, they didn't have a middle school or a high school. And so a local church was like, we need to start helping this community out, and one way we can do this is build a middle school. Just because, I mean, if there's no education, there's really not a lot of opportunities for the kids to do anything other than what their parents did. And wherever there's a lack of education, it kind of just becomes a norm, like a hotbed for crime, which did become the case in Mission. And so this church was like, we have to help these guys out. So they wanted to build a school, and they partnered with us, the coffee shop, so that when climbers come in and they give the coffee shop their money, that money then goes towards helping build and support this school. So this day right here in this picture, we got a bunch of climbers together, and you see those desks? I might be standing in the way for some of y'all, but there's these desks right here. We fixed up all those desks, and we painted a bunch of walls and just had like a work day. And so that's one of my favorite aspects of what I do, because it helps the community out in a way where we're not like they're still working for it and we're helping them. And it actually gives us a lot of credit and a lot of love from the climbers. The climbers come in from all over the world. These people literally all over the world. And they show up, and one thing they love about the Buo, the coffee shop, is they know that these people care about us and they care about the community. And when I spend money there, this isn't just going into somebody's pocket. This is going towards, a lot of that money is going towards the community and helping build this school. And so this helps us a lot with just climbers wanting to come to the Buo and immediately kind of liking us and thinking we're cool. I want to share a Bible verse that connects with this from James chapter 1, verse 26 and 27. So James 1, 26 and 27 says this: "Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this: to look after the orphans and the widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world." This word that James uses for religious is actually also the same Greek word for worship. You can kind of use those interchangeably here. And so worship that God our Father likes is looking after the orphan and the widow. Now in James's day, this is James, the brother of Jesus, by the way. What a weird intro. Can you imagine like meeting somebody at a party? James, Jesus' brother, and you'd be like, whoa, okay, cool, man. You're God's brother. That's wild. But James, he writes this, and he says, look after the orphan and the widow. And in his day, they were the most oppressed, the lowest of the low, had the hardest time in life. And so orphan and widow was his day. And so for our day, I think we read this verse and we say, okay, look around our own community and our own world, and who are the people that need help, and how can we help them? James says the worship that, he's like, stop talking. James is like, shut up. What can you actually do to help the orphan and the widow? That's the worship that our God and our Father likes and enjoys. And so that's the question for us. And that's why the climbers, I think, trust the Buo in general, is because they walk in and they see followers of Jesus, Christians, trying to actually help the community they're in and try and be a part of and try and make the world a better place where they're at. And that gives us a lot of, I guess, like relational investment from the climbers in general. And that's what we're trying to do. That's the whole ministry right there, is we're trying to just make relationships with climbers and share Jesus with them. Relationships, I think, are really all that matter in life. Like our relationship with God and our relationship with other people. That's at the end of the day, that's what really matters. The rest is really important and really good, but at the end of the day, I think what we remember and what is valuable is our relationship with God and our relationship with other people. And so one of the things the school does is allows us to have those relationships and form those relationships. Another thing we do to form relationships with climbers is we have events at the Buo. On Thanksgiving and Christmas, we have all-you-can-eat feasts for these climbers who can eat a lot. These guys can put a lot of food away. It's pretty impressive. It's pretty wild. And so I think it's the next picture, Calvin, if I got the order right. Oh, next one. There you go. Boom. Here's all of us at an event. We're hanging out. We're having a Christmas feast together. We literally serve hundreds of climbers throughout this day. They come in all day. We cook food for them all day. And the reason we do this is, I think, one, everybody wants to be with somebody on Christmas. Even these rock climbers that are typically living out of their van or their car, just kind of traveling around, they want community on Christmas. I think one thing I learned from leaving Brownwood is the small town vibe, for me, the Howard Payne vibe, for me, the church here, such a solid community that I was always thankful for, but at the end of the day, it was almost impossible not to take it for granted. Just having amazing people around you that are there to support you and love you and do life with you. A lot of people don't have that. I would even say the vast majority of people don't have that solid community in their lives. And so people really, something as simple as we're going to serve you guys food and hang out goes a long way. One of the biggest, most impactful relationships for me that I formed was with a guy named Garrett. He's French-Canadian. He came down for 3 months and climbed in Pachero, so me and him climbed together a lot. We hung out a lot. He lived out of his van, and so I would go hang out with him in his van, and we would drink coffee and then go climb. Really, really funny dude. He was is an atheist, but dude, we would have the best chats together about life, and he would explain his viewpoints, I would explain my viewpoints, we would hear each other out, and this happened constantly. But there was a shift in our relationship prior to, just a little bit before the Christmas feast. He had told me that both of his parents had passed away when he was in high school from cancer. And so from his whole life, from a young age on, from the core developmental years on, this guy was living life alone and felt like he had to fend for himself. And so from that, he got this belief that there is no God. And so I got to hear him out and hear his story. And I think if I had just crammed Jesus down his throat, this cat would have never given me the time of day, ever. But the fact that we just hung out together and climbed together, this guy tells me his actual story, and I can actually see where he's coming from. And I can see, dude, I get why you think that. That logic adds up, man. I disagree with you, and I totally believe there's a God. But I see where you're coming from, my friend. On Christmas Day, this guy, he was there all day. Garrett was there all day. He hung out, and we were doing the Christmas thing. We were serving tons of people, making coffee like crazy. And at the end of the day, we started cleaning up, and we're just that was a long, long process. One of our guys, one of the local Mexican dudes who helps us out, he ended up washing dishes for a record of I think it was 4 hours. He just washed dishes straight up, which is pretty impressive. Dude, Mexicans are the best people in the whole wide world. I don't know if you guys know that, but they are super dope. And so literally, oh my gosh, they put up with me when they really shouldn't. It's great. But we were cleaning up, and it was taking forever, really long process. And this guy, Garrett, hung out with us the whole time and helped us clean up. And right at the end, right before he left, he pulled aside me and another guy named Sean, who works at the Buo. He's the manager. He pulled us aside, and he was like, hey, I just wanted to say thank you. And this wasn't the thank you of All right, see you guys later. Thanks for the event. Bye. It was like, hey, I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. Like, I really appreciated this. And I just had to tell you that, like, thank you. Because this is the first time I felt like I've had a family on Christmas ever. And so events like this, like feeding people, it may not seem like a big deal, but it is. Like events like just like, oh, we're going to hang out with people. It may not seem like a big deal, but it is, and it carries a lot of weight. Everything we do at the Buo is to form relationships. That was one that I loved, and just the honor just to be in someone's life and to give them that community and that family. I mean, that's an honor and a privilege that I love and will not forget ever. I really love Garrett. I'm excited to hang out with him again. If I ever go to Canada, I'm going to let him know. Hopefully I do go to Canada someday if COVID ever goes away. One of the ways, like I mentioned earlier, that we also form relationships, and I had a solid relationship with this guy Garrett, was through rock climbing. Calvin, you can do the picture you showed a second ago. Now, all right, cool. There's me rock climbing. Boom. Just shameless, like, isn't that cool? That's awesome, right? Cool. That's the only reason that photo's in there, honestly. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But you can go off that photo now. We'll just show it for like 5 seconds. One of the ways we form awesome relationships is by climbing with people. You go out, you're out there together all day, you're doing something together. One of the most impactful relationships I made while doing this was with a guy named Carl. Carl came into the coffee shop every single day, not even lying, and he would always order the same thing. And he was just one of those guys. He walks into a room and everybody's glad he's there. Everybody starts smiling, everybody starts laughing. This guy's just like, his laughter and his jokes are infectious. And so we started hanging out. We played a lot of board games together, drank a lot of coffee together, climbed together a lot. And it was always kind of just superficial conversations, just kind of like whatever, because he's a pretty like happy dude. I'm a pretty happy dude. But then I remember one time we were really chatting and getting into it while drinking coffee, and he kind of started to share with me more of his story. His dad had passed away a few years ago, and he was still just wrestling with that grief. And so I just listened to him talk about his relationship with his dad, and all I did was ask him, like, hey, what was your dad's name? And the moment I asked him, hey, what was your dad's name, like, you could just feel the conversation shift and feel this guy, like, just surprised that I asked. And I don't think many people asked, honestly, like, anything about his dad. And he told me his dad's name, and it was like, man, hey, like, I really appreciated that. And there was kind of this moment there, and I was like, oh, that was really cool. Honestly, I left that conversation, though, and I didn't really think much of it. I was just like, all right, cool. About 2 weeks or a month later, I'm not sure, Carl was going on a really long rock climb, like a big one, and I was about to go work at the Buo, and he texted me, and he was like, hey, are you at the Buo? And I was like, no, but I'm about to be there. So I show up, and he's like, I'm on the back porch. So I get to the back porch, and he's sitting there, like, obviously not okay. This guy who's always happy, not happy at all. And he stands up, and I'm like, hey, man, what's up? And he, like, stands up, gives me a big hug, and starts crying. And after a while, I ask him, what's going on, man? And he says, today's my dad's birthday, and this is the hardest day every year, and I just miss him so much. Grief is tough, and it sucks. And it never goes away, and you just have to learn how to live with the grief. And I remember just sitting there with this guy, Carl, for quite some time, and we just sat there. And I didn't really say anything. We just sat there and hung out. Eventually, I made him coffee, and eventually he went climbing. But I remember we were actually able to pray together, and we were able to talk. And I think, honestly, at the end of the day, that conversation would have never happened if I just hadn't listened to him talk about his life. I want to share another verse from James. This is James chapter 1, verse 19. James 1:19. And this is what it says. This is one of my favorite verses in Scripture. I love this. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. I'm going to read that again real quick. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Coming back into the United States, I've found that we really suck at this, honestly. And it's sad to say, but it's the truth. Not a lot of people, I think, do this well. Not a lot are quick to listen and slow to speak. I think we are very quick to speak and slow to listen. And I know that my relationship with Carl only became that relationship, like, because by the grace of God, I was able to just listen to what he had to say. And I think the call for followers of Jesus is to listen first. I'm getting ready to go back to the Buo, and literally the advice I'm going to give the new staff is just listen. I'm going to tell them, before you try and tell anything to anybody, just listen. Ask questions and hear their story, hear where they're coming from, hear what's going on. I'm going to keep bringing up this verse from James throughout the rest of while I'm talking, but man, what a challenge just to listen to people. Like I've said multiple times now, everything we do at the Buo is to form relationships, and one of the ways that I felt like I could care for people and love the climbers and love the community well is to join the rescue team. So with climbing and hiking and rappelling, obviously sometimes people get injured, so there's a rescue team that goes in to get them and bring them back to the main road so that they can get in an ambulance, go to a hospital. And so I joined that team because working at the Buo, we're there for the whole season, and we climb a lot, so we're kind of like the perfect fit for this role. Calvin, I think you can do the next photo. Yeah, so this is us. We practiced a lot for the rescue team, learning what to do in certain situations and on certain trails and how to handle stuff. And so we got some paramedics there telling us what's up. We got some really awesome rock climbers and people who are super talented and gifted, teaching all of us what to do in certain situations in practice, which was good. And so inevitably, when the climbing season started, we had multiple rescues, which were tough, and they were really, really challenging. But like I said, a way to get involved in the community and a way to show the climbers I cared for them. One of the most challenging seasons for me there at El Pochero Chico, or at the Buo, a rock climber who was actually a professional rock climber. His name was Brad Goldbright. He was a pro, and so he was famous. Shortly before coming to Pochero, I had watched a movie that was about him climbing. He came to Pochero Chico. He came here to Mexico, and he was climbing. Actually, he was rappelling, and he fell off and fell a long way and actually died. And his partner fell as well, but his partner was okay. So one of the hardest things for me was when we got that rescue mission call, hey, there's been a big fall. We think it's going to be a body recovery, not a rescue. So we went up there. We found his partner. We got him off the mountain, and that was on a Saturday night. And then the next day we were going to go up and recover the body. And I remember thinking, man, I really don't want to go back up there. Obviously, I'm not going to go into detail, but obviously it was a pretty traumatizing experience, and it was a hard thing to be a part of. And I was like, I really don't want to go back up there in the morning. But after talking with some other staff at the Buo, we were like, the reason we came here was to love people, care for people. And the reason we're followers, one of the biggest things about following Jesus is to love people like how Jesus loves people. And so we were like, this is our job to go back up there tomorrow. And obviously we're like, hey, anybody who really doesn't want to go back up, does not have to go back up, and no one's going to look at them differently. That's totally fine. But we were like, me and another guy specifically were like, we need to go back up because that's why we came here. I came here to love people and serve people, and that included Brad, and that includes his family and friends. And so the next day we decided we're going to go back up. And so we went back up, and it was a long process, and it was a long day. And it was a terrible, tragic incident, but it was one that I felt brought me really into the heart of the community there and at the heart of the climbing community there. And so though it was tragic, I feel like I learned a lot about myself from that experience, and it also helped in forming relationships with people just because we were a part of that rescue and we were a part of that recovery. Everything we do is for relationships, to serve and love people, including a rescue, including a recovery. The best thing about working at the Buo is getting to meet people from all over the world. The best thing about working at the Buo is getting to hear from people who have tons of different views in life, different spiritual and religious views, different political views. Literally, some of my best friends by the end of the season were I would say they were communists, but literally they were communists, and we called them comrade, and it was awesome. And I was like, what's up, comrade? And he's like, what's up, comrade? And I was like, cool, all right, you can call me that, I guess. But seriously, meeting people from all over the world and getting to share Jesus with them, but also just getting to live life with them. And the only way to do that well was to listen to them and be slow to speak and definitely slow to become angry. At the end of the day, I think really what we do with the Buo is we really just open up our hearts, and we have to do this every day. Open up our hearts for God's love to come in. To feel God's love and then to love people like God. And the only way to love people like God is to know that he loves us and to kind of just redirect that love towards other people, give them an experience where they don't just experience another person, but experience a radical, life-changing, unconditional love that comes from God. And I think when we open up our heart to God's love, it's just life-changing. And you just see people in a whole different light. And I think when we really open up our heart to God's love, at the center of that for me, I found Jesus in a whole new way. Getting to see that Jesus loves every single person that comes into the Buo, the coffee shop. Getting to see that Jesus cares about everybody. And then just looking back at the life that Jesus lived when he was on earth. This guy came to earth to die. This guy he gave up. In heaven, he was totally content. He's not missing out on anything. He's fine. He gave all that up, came to earth, and lived a very challenging life. He spoke truth to power constantly. He hung out with the prostitutes, the tax collectors, which they hated the tax collectors. And then he hung out with the sinners, and he hung out with the lowest of the low. He elevated women, because back then, women were just they were basically just property, and he elevated them up to a place of equality. Jesus was just crushing it all the time. And I think to try and love people like Jesus is the challenge. But when we do that, for me, it's a radical experience. Coming back into the States, I loved what Joey said 2 weeks ago. I'm not trying to get political here, so don't hear me being political at all. But coming back into the States, we as the church have an amazing opportunity to elevate, to fight for people, to fight for justice and equality for people of color, specifically the black community in our country. We have an awesome opportunity right now to live like how Jesus lived. And I think this absolutely 100% starts with this verse in James, slow to speak and quick to listen. Because, it's easy for me to just get defensive when really I should just hear people out, and I should listen to the African-American community and just be like, tell me what's going on. And listen to them and trust that they're telling the truth. I think we have an awesome opportunity in this country to love people radically. We have an awesome opportunity to be at the forefront of justice and mercy and fighting for equality for all people. I want to end by closing out the story that I started with. You can go and put the first picture up again, Cal. Real quick, I want to share this first. I forgot to share this, but it's worth sharing. Book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 43. I think I gave you the right one, Calvin, but we'll see. Jesus says this, "You've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I tell you this, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you." I just think that's a challenging verse, right? If we just switch enemy with the word, love people that are different from you. Love people that, maybe you have to go out of your way to love. That is the kind of life that, I'm pointing at the Bible verse, sorry. That is the kind of love and the life that Jesus calls us to live. Now I'm going to end with the story I started with. So Devin and I were hiking down. It's the night. It's we're super exhausted. I'm just frustrated. It was definitely both of our fault that we were in the situation we were in, being lost on a trail at night. But I was definitely 100% blaming Devin in that moment. With retrospect, I was equally my fault. But at the time, I was like, Devin, people told me not to go climbing with you, and I didn't listen. But we were climbing. I'm glad we went together. We climbed after that many times. It's great. We are hiking down. We're getting through, and then all of a sudden, just boom, we made it. We end up. There's a pool complex right next to the mountains for families. We end up in the pool complex. And there's a big fence all around it. And it's funny because my car was right there. But to get out of this pool complex, we were going to have to walk the opposite way and then hop a fence. And I was like, oh, dang it, the car's right there. And so I was done. And I didn't care that I had to walk very much further. And obviously, middle of the night, me and Devin are not supposed to be in this pool complex that's locked up. And just as I'm thinking we shouldn't be here, I see someone move over actually to my right. And This guy walks out. He's obviously the custodian. He's got like keys. And I was like, oh, crap. Like, we're probably busted. Like, this is probably bad. We're going to have to explain to this guy. Devin and I are not very good at Spanish. We were going to have to explain to this guy, like, what happened, why we're here. But this guy sees us, and then he just walks over to the gate that's, like, right by my car, unlocks it, opens it up, and is just like, boom, there you guys go. And he didn't say that. I don't know what he said, something in Spanish. But, and so he opens the gate and obviously gestures that we are free to go. And I remember, like, Devin and I were just like, just after a long day like that, catching one break right at the end, we were just like, thank you so much. Like, I just wanted to give the guy a hug, you know? Like, for real, man, thank you so much for opening this gate for us, opening this door. So we went through the gate, walked to my car, threw our gear in, drove off. We were okay. It all worked out. I wanted to end by sharing this. In the end of the book of James in chapter 5, James says God is a God of compassion and mercy. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. And so I want to say this. It's a challenging time in America right now. It's a challenging time in the world right now with COVID, with protests, with all of us trying to listen and learn and figure out what the heck is going on. Like Joey said, every day it seems like new stuff, something else to learn. But I just want to say this and encourage everybody in this. At the end of the day, Jesus is there waiting at the end of the road. Even if you are way off the beaten path, he is there waiting. I just want to end by saying, yeah, Jesus loves you, and he is there, and he is ready, and he wants to help you out. And the moment that it's like, we can't take this anymore, he's going to open a gate, and it's going to work out. Thank you guys for listening. I love you all, and I'm going to pray, and then we're going to have a dope worship song. So please pray with me. God, I thank you for your love. I thank you that no matter what, you are there for us. God, I just pray for, Lord, I just want to lift up the people of Mexico, Lord, and just thank you for their hospitality and their love. And I just pray that our ministry would continue to be a light there in that place. Thank you for this church, and I just thank you for its love and its community, and I just ask that it would continue to be a light in Brownwood, in Texas, in the world. God, you are the man. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.